Good evening. Tonight's reading is from the Encyclopedia of Ancient and Forbidden Knowledge. Author Zolar, 1970-Publications, Los Angeles. Most people spend 90% of their time doing what other people want them to do instead of what they want to do themselves. Most people, perhaps you, are haunted by self-destructive feelings they don't understand. These are feelings which may frighten and depress you. For example, the constant fear that other people are somehow better, the fear that you are now and will always remain a second-class citizen in life, or the crushing realization that you always feel poor no matter how much money you earn, and always feel inadequate no matter how great your accomplishments. Because of two crippling pressures, the constant attempts of other people to exploit you, and your own self-destructive feelings of inferiority, you spend your life in an emotional prison instead of a palace. You allow yourself to be surrounded by enemies instead of friends. You accomplish only a fraction of what you are really able to accomplish. You find yourself constantly driven away from the real enjoyments, the real achievements, the real meaning of your life. Learn to control your destiny. Study the ancient sciences, for this knowledge will guide you through the present age of anxiety and depression. The very first step for the reader into the hidden pathway of nature's mysteries is the face-to-face confrontation with a starting fact. The fact that all his preconceptions, all his education, all his accumulated materialistic wisdom are unable to account for the simple phenomenon which transpire and transcend the action and interaction of life forces on the planet on which he lives. As a chemist, he may pursue the discrete discontinuities of force until they are lost within the realms of the imponderable, the great unknown, or the aching void, as it is christened amid the groans of scientific travail, swallows him, but he can get no further. As a physicist, he may decompose light and sound into what he thinks are their component parts, and with scientific accuracy dissect before your very eyes these truths as a surgeon would his anatomical subject. No sooner is that point reached than the shy molecules and timid vibrations become alarmed at man's daring presumption and fly into the realm of the infinite and occult unknown. There in the aching void they sport and delight, safe from man's vulgar intrusion. The realm of the unknown imponderables is the universal, an infinite ocean of something, yet nothing, which science created in her frantic endeavor to account for the material phenomenon of the real world. For a time, she was infinitely pleased with her own peculiar offspring, which has now become a restless phantom, a grim, unlovely specter, which haunts the laboratories of its parent night and day until at last science has become frightened at her own child. Now, science tries in vain to slay that ghost of her own creation, but she dares not enter the void she has called into existence and there pursue and recapture the truant atoms and timid vibrations of this sublunary sphere we call Earth. But much is missing. Therefore, at the very outset of man's pilgrimage through these vast and scientifically unknown regions, the reader had best unload all the heavy and useless baggage of educated opinion and scientific dogmas which he may carry. If he does not, he will find himself top-heavy and will either capsize or be buried amid the debris of conflicting opinion. The only equipment which man has found useful and which will repay the cost of transportation is an unbiased, open mind, logical reasoning, genuine common sense, and a calm, reflective brain. Anything else on the voyage into the unknown upon which we are now about to embark is simply useless, costly deadweight. Hence, so far as modern science is concerned, the less the reader has, the better. If he can use his scientific acquirements merely as aids and crutches in climbing the spiritual steps of occultism, if he will find the science an auxiliary force, the science is no longer a sacred cow, but a functional tool. But this is an exceedingly rare gift, and one seldom found. It also has a delusive snare, because 9 out of every 10 people cheat themselves into the belief that they possess such an ability, whereas in reality, they are woefully deficient. It is always a safe course to mistrust the absolute in all opinions and reasoning. Before starting out on such a mighty and important undertaking, we must draw serious attention to the major obstacle of the voyage, the one which will be the most difficult to surmount. This hidden rock upon which so many profound students of the occult become shipwrecked is a failure to realize the duality of truth, the truth of appearances, the truth of realities. The former is relative, the latter is absolute. If we possess half of anything, we know by the laws of common sense and logical reasoning that there must be another half somewhere. No subtle twist of metaphysical sophistry can cheat us into the belief that we possess the whole. We know and see that we have just exactly half and no more. Furthermore, when we look at any known thing, we know that for it to possess the attributes of a thing, it must possess 3 dimensions: length, breadth, and thickness. This being so, we also know it has, broadly speaking, 2 sides, an outside and an inside. The outside is not the same as the inside, any more than the boiler is the steam which drives the engine. This logical process of reasoning is the only chart which has so far been prepared for the occult explorer. It is vague and probably unsatisfactory, yet when it is used in conjunction with man's conscious intuition, the only true compass to guide man in his winding, uneven pathway upon the shores of the infinite, one never need fear being lost or failing in his endeavors to know the truth. In order to carry the same line of reasoning a little further, let us take a type of architecture, the Gothic, for example, and examine a well-known specimen of this structural conception. The mind will say, what a beautiful building, how imposing and grand, what a triumph of man's mechanical skill. So it appears, and upon the plane of visual appearance, so it really is. Consequently, it is a truth for the time. But when examined in the light of occult science, we find this visual truth is only relative. It is only a truth on the external, transitory plane of material phenomenon. We see that in addition to being the result of man's trained mechanical ability, it is the external form of his mental ideal. It is the phenomenal outcome of man's creative attributes. When we look at this solid building from the Earth's plane, we only see the outside of an object having length, breadth, and thickness. We know there must be an inside, but we must enter the interior plane before we can see it. Therein we shall find the building as it exists within the subjective world of its architect. The solid stone edifice will crumble to decay and fall. In the end, not one material particle will remain to indicate the place whereon it stood. Hence, the building was not real. It was only a passing appearance assumed by matter under the molding forces of man's mechanical ability. When the forces which gave it shape and form became polarized by the restless oceans of planetary magnetism, It dissolved and finally vanished like the baseless fabric of a dream. Even though the external structure of stone and mortar was lost within the realms of the great unknown, the idea which it created was eternal. It was a spiritual reality. Therefore, the idea was the absolute truth, reality, yet the actual non-reality of stone appeared to be the real. It is these delusive appearances which created the confusion regarding the exact meaning of the terms spirit and matter. Science refers all she cannot grapple with to some undiscovered forces of matter, whereas theology refers them to the spirit. Both are right and both are wrong. As we explore the territory belonging to both spirit and matter during the progress of our journey, we will state that spirit and matter, as we know them, are but the duality of expression of the one great deific principle. The duality is due to a difference in polarity. Spirit and matter are a unity under two modes of action. This duality can be comprehended in its true relationship when viewed from both planes and is realized by the true science of correspondence. Science is but a material system of symbolism from which we regulate our conceptions of all things. Plato said that ideas rule the world, and Plato is right, for before the divine ideal was evolved from within the divine sensorium, the universe was not. The result of the divine ideal was the creation of a pure symbolic form. Just as symbols are the product of ideas, so in their turn, ideas are the symbols of thought. Thought itself is but the symbolic response of the self to the pulsating throb of the radiant soul. Beyond this, we cannot penetrate, even in our most exalted conceptions. Thus, all serious study and meditation as to the nature and existence of God is unprofitable and cannot bring the reader any substantial return either in this world or the next. The infinite can never be comprehended by the finite. We must rest satisfied with the certain knowledge that we can, by one grand chain of sequences, trace the transmission of thoughts, ideas, and symbolic forms to their divine source. The angelic world is but a prototype or symbolic expression of the divine sphere of the infinite. The celestial world is but a reflection of the angelic. The spiritual world is the prototype and the symbolic outcome of the celestial heavens. The astral is a reflection of the spiritual sphere. And lastly, the material is but the concrete shadow of the astral kingdoms. Now the reader can perceive how we, in our present state, are a long way down on the scale of creative life. But if we exist, we know by the laws of our being that we can and shall find our way back through this valley of the shadow. We can leave this plane of inverted images and delusive appearances for the bright realms of our former state. There, in those spheres of pure angelic life, we can exist with the ever-living reality of all infinitude of apparent realities.